Well, welcome to an appreciation of Jimmy Anderson and all his time here at Lancashire, and of course as England's finest ever fast bowler. We'll also be looking forward to the Test match, which will be Jimmy's last Test, taking place at Lord's. And I'm delighted to say that I've got David Lloyd alongside me. David, let's start with Jimmy. The best ever England bowler?
Yeah, I think the stats will back that up. His longevity, the way his career has developed from being a tearaway 90-mile-an-hour bowler into a deadly accurate, quick enough opening bowler. And when you look at him, age is just a number. He looks as fit as he's ever done.
I mean, the longevity is extraordinary.
Yeah.
When you think about it, you and I and the late lamented Bob Willis were commentating on a Roses match here in around 2001, 2002, something like that.
Yeah.
And that's when we first saw him.
Well, he'd come from Burnley, and if you look back from time to time, he would open the batting for Burnley. And so he came to Lancashire's attention and played in that game, and I remember it vividly because Bob Willis would love a quick bowler. He wanted them to be quick. And he pressed his lazy switch down to the director.
Yeah.
And we had a speed gun at the time.
Yeah.
And Bob pressed his lazy switch and he said, "Is that speed gun correct? This cock is bowling at 90 miles an hour." And it excited Bob. And Jimmy, you'd have to say he was a bit of a tearaway at that stage, but you know, that is one thing that you do sit up if a young gun comes on the scene and bowls quickly.
And he did bowl quick in those days.
Yeah.
It's interesting when you look back because the first thing, as you say, about him was his pace.
Yeah.
But he developed, as you've just said, into one of the best line bowlers. And line is an understatement, really, because he had great control over everything he did, whether it was swing or seam or reverse swing and later on wobble seam, which I'd never heard of wobble seam. Used to bowl it often enough without knowing it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they'd come across deliveries like that from all the bowling coaches that they had, and they've had plenty of England. And so they've had time, because of central contracts, that they can work in practice on different variations. Try this, try that, let's try this, all that works. And so, you know, his development, if you remember, I can't remember what they called it, the ECB, but they sent young cricketers, whether they were academy players or young lions, whatever it was, to the Australian Academy in Adelaide, round about Henley Beach, somewhere around there. Rodney Marsh was in charge of all that. And Rodney Marsh was on record as saying, unless this lad changes his action, he'll only last 5 years. So they tried to modify his action. You recall that? They tried to, and it didn't work. Right. So he had the intelligence to go away and say, no, this is what I do. And to get back to that point that you made about a tearaway who would then be a wonderful line bowler, just think of the ones that have done it. Sean Pollock, definitely.
Lilly.
Dennis Lilly, rapid bowlers. McGrath.
Hadley.
Used
McGrath. To run miles,
yeah, Hadley run miles, and then, no, I don't need to do that.
Marshall.
So they've all said, look, I'm quick enough. I've got a good bouncer if I need it, but I can just bring everything back to about 90% and be deadly accurate and know exactly where it's going. So I go back from a Lancashire viewpoint to Brian Statham. Exactly the same. Knew exactly where it was going.
The stats say that Jimmy is the best quick bowler ever. 700 wickets, 187 Test matches before next week. Where do you put him in that pantheon? We've just mentioned a whole list of names. Where is he in that?
Well, I'd rather not say this bloke is the best. I don't do that. I'm not into that sort of stuff. But there have been some fantastic bowlers, and Malcolm Marshall definitely comes to mind, alongside Dennis Lilly. And Dennis Lilly, according to all the other fast bowlers, will be a template. That this is what we would look at. Andy Roberts was another. And so, you know, you're talking about the greatest bowlers that we've ever seen, and from an England viewpoint, Fred Truman, and he's right up there. He's in that cluster of great fast bowlers. Now, let's not say fast bowlers. I mean, Shoaib Akhtar was a fast bowler. Brett Lee was a fast bowler. We're talking Jeff Thompson. It's not that pace, but quick enough. That, you know, I get that point that your wicketkeeper don't stand up to the stumps for a start, and they've got a quick enough bouncer that can just push a batter back.
So the two great bowlers of the last 50, 60 years that have from Lancashire have been Brian Statham and Jimmy Anderson. Is it unfair to compare those two?
As I say, I don't do that sort of thing. I played with Brian Statham. He was a fantastic bowler, over 2,000 wickets. At 15? At 15, 16, something like that. In a different era, on uncovered pitches. And for Lancashire, years and years ago, he's on a cassette somewhere, just a cassette. I interviewed him. And I threw him the ball. I said, right, come on, Brian. You know, I played with you. You were my captain. Show us how it's done. And he was totally understated, Brian Statham. He said, I don't know, really. He said, I just put it like that. He said, and when it lands, I have no idea what's going to happen. But I do know where it's going. So that's your deadly accuracy. And Jimmy Anderson, exactly the same. There's no bowler. You know, I've spoke to Curtly Ambrose and Courtney Walsh, and they've said exactly the same. Great bowlers. This is what I do. When it lands, I have no idea what's happening. It can either go that way, straight on, or that way. I have no idea, but I know where it's going.
It's a very good point,
It is.
and one with which I agree. However, I think Jimmy, in his quest for bowling perfection, and he's still doing that at 41 years of age, nearly 42, and Stuart Broad described him as a bowling addict, would have done as much as possible, perhaps more than any other bowler before him, to try and determine what the ball was going to do. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the accuracy is the thing. It's no point doing this, that, and the other if it's all over the place. You've got to get it. There's a business area, and it's roundabout off stump, and it's a length that a batter is in two minds. Is it forward, back? Which way am I going? And it's a length and a line that puts the bowler in business, and the great bowlers are able to do that consistently. But you know, I always go back that I still contend that once it lands, it's in the lap of the gods what it's going to do.
I had the pleasure and privilege of watching him bowl at Southport earlier this last week, and had a quick chat with Peter Moores after, and we both agreed that he looked silken, like a Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
Is he going too early? Have the England hierarchy made the wrong decision?
I wish he was sat here, Jimmy Anderson. I wish he was sat here and we could just ask him that question, because he's been very quiet about it all. And so going forward, he may make a decision after this test match. He's going to stay on with England as a consultant or a bowling coach or a guru, whatever you want to call it. But there are 2 championship matches in September, when England have finished, that he may be available for Lancashire. So, you know, we're at Emirates Old Trafford, we're all just watching this space as to where it goes. And then, of course, you know, he would have to have a conversation with Dale Benkenstein and with the club here as to what their ambitions were or what their thoughts are. But looking at him, if you look at him, I do not believe he's 41.
No, I don't.
He
looks fitter now than I've seen him in the last 5 years.
He looks absolutely bang on. You know what they say? Usually when they get to about 35, he's lost a yard of pace. Well, he's 41, nearly 42. He's exactly the same.
Well, who knows? Jimmy may, after the Test match at Lord's, still continue to play for Lancashire. As Lancashire fans and supporters, let's hope so. He may even be around in 2025, which would be fantastic, of course. So it is going to be Jimmy's last test. We know that. There's no way back from that because that's been stated. It's the West Indies at Lord's, and England are embarking on, I can't say a new era, but they're moving on in terms of some selections. There's no Bairstow, there will be no Anderson. Are they getting the selections right? Because you can't replace Jimmy, can you? You can play somebody in his place, but it's not a replacement.
Their cycle, England's cycle, is to prepare for Australia, for the Ashes. That's what they're doing. And they're almost starting again, and they'll do exactly the same with a one-day team, with a white ball team. You nearly said a new era. It is. There are fresh faces coming in and younger faces. So they've picked 14 for Lord's. I can give you the first 7, and that's exactly what it'll be. It'll be Crawley, Duckett, Pope, Root, Brook, Stokes, Smith as wicket-keeper. I can give you the number 11, Jimmy Anderson. I can't give you 8, 9 and 10. I can reduce it to 13. Lawrence is the spare batter, he's the reserve batter. So now we've got 13. And so it's Potts, it's Wokes, it's Dylan Pennington and Gus Atkinson. And Bashir, the off-spinner. One thing they could do at Lord's, play all your seamers, and Stokes is bowling, don't forget. He's bowling a lot of overs, so he's fit. Could play all your seamers and leave the off-spinner out, and Root would do a bit of spinning at Lord's.
I don't think that's the way that Ben Stokes captains and wants his side to be. I think he wants a spinner in there.
Well, if he wants a spinner, Bashir plays. And so now we need 2. So we've got Anderson, Bashir at 10 and 11. And so you need 8 and 9.
2 seamers.
They want 2 seamers out of Dylan Pennington, Matt Potts, Gus Atkinson and Chris Wokes. And what they usually like, England, is a batter at number 8 who can just... Wokes fits that bill, as does Potts. Who would I play? I would play Pennington, pace. And the sweet on Pennington, because of his pace, we saw him last week at Southport. He's a big lad. He's a big unit and he looks fit.
Hits the deck,
and he's quick. He is quick. And it's something that if you're looking at Australia, you're going to Australia, you need some pace.
He's come up on the blind side, really, hasn't he? I don't think he was on a name on anybody's lips at the start of the summer.
He was.
Was he?
Yeah, he was. They've been sweet on him because they get excited by pace. Atkinson has been with the squad now for a season or so. I saw him in a white ball competition in Dubai.
And I remember you texted me.
I texted you and said, have a look at this guy.
Yeah.
More importantly, I was with Simon Dewell, I was with Ian Bishop, Wasim and Wakar. And they all said, who's this?
Decent judges there, then.
They're good judges. So what has he got? He gets in tight to the umpire. He bowls a bit quicker than Jimmy Anderson, and he bowls an off-stump line and length from close in, gets tight in. Can he put a second and third spell in? You know, that because he's been injury prone.
Yeah.
So at Test matches, as Ollie Robinson has found out, you've got to be able to put your second and third stint in as a quick bowler. Wokes is proven. He's mid-30s.
34 now.
Are they moving on? Is he going to be? Are they going to take him to the Ashes? Probably not.
I was surprised he was in the squad, but he might provide the experience in the bowling ranks when Jimmy moves on.
But they like Potts. They do like Potts.
Just go back to the batting a little. They picked Jamie Smith as keeper. Don't keep for Surrey.
No.
He's keeping for England. That's always an odd one for me.
Yeah.
And Ollie Pope, who's still there at number 3.
Yeah. There are 2 debatable things. There are 3. Ollie Pope is at number 3. That is a massive position. Jonathan Trott. Jonathan Trott. He did it for years, did it brilliantly. 43 test matches, averages 34, Ollie Pope. That has to improve. That has to improve. But he's vice captain of the team. Ben Duckett interests me.
Oh yeah, I know what you're going to say.
He hasn't played cricket. He hasn't played a red ball game since April. And he didn't play at Southport, the red ball game against Jimmy Anderson. But he played in a T20 game on Friday, which was rained off. But he got a very useful 30 in 21 deliveries.
Well, that's how he bats in Test cricket.
Which will put him in good stead for a Lord's Test match. That's wonderful preparation. And the other one is Jamie Smith, who, again, they've just been itching to get him into the team. He's a quality batsman, terrific player, doesn't keep wicket. Who keeps wicket? Ben Fawkes. So they've binned him, they've binned Johnny Bairstow and picked this lad who doesn't keep wicket, but he's a wicket keeper.
But he bats in the way they want.
He fits the
dynamic.
He fits the dynamic. He fits the profile of the way they want to play and the balance of the team. So when he shells one, boom! You're like, oh my goodness me, the folk are going to go mad. But it's the way that they're going. It's what they want, and as I mentioned earlier, all eyes on the Ashes, and so they've got to balance eyes on the Ashes, but they need to be winning Test matches against the West Indies and Sri Lanka.
And they should beat West Indies and Sri Lanka. There's no doubt about that.
Well,
even though West Indies have beaten Australia in Brisbane earlier this year, there won't be a pushover.
No, they will not. I think West Indies will be okay. I hope they put a real good show up, because there's a wider aspect that England, Australia, India take all the cash. We'll have all that, thanks, and you can have threatens. And so, I would always root for that underdog who's a bit deprived. We haven't got the finance, we haven't got the wherewithal. So I hope that West Indies and Sri Lanka give it a real go.
Before we go then, David, final word on Jimmy.
Well, it's been a privilege to watch him develop, and what I've sort of tried to get out there in an artistic view. He started off as Banksy and finished up as Rembrandt. He has been absolutely sensational. And just from my own personal view, I hope he carries on. Because, I'll tell you and I will know this. And let's finish on this. You're a long time retired. You really are a long time retired. Think carefully.
David, thank you very much, and we both wish Jimmy the very, very best and his final Test appearance at Lord's this coming week.